This is a huge, huge part of portfolio and client work. So you will hear me repeatedly and Amber talking about the importance of variety. Just this month, I had a client. She gives me just a really simple Google Doc with my assignments for the month. And one of the recipes she wants me to reshoot for her, the only note she put on there is the photos are just too similar.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pretty Focused podcast. We are doing another Coach's Corner segment. And now the last Coach's Corner segment we had was with the whole entire team. This time, you're going to get a chance to hear from Lindsay and Amber. They are our portfolio review coaches. And so they walk our students through building their portfolio. Now, if you're not already familiar with Pretty Focused is an online program, not just a course, but it's a whole training system where we teach you food photography. We coach you to help you grow in your skill. And then we connect you with clients whenever you graduate. And part of that graduation process is building a portfolio, because ultimately your clients are going to be hiring you based off of your portfolio. And so it's going to be really important that you have a stellar portfolio. Like this is not a time to slack off. This is like a time to ramp up. And so Lindsay and Amber, they're going to be walking us through 11 tips that they have come up with as they have done this for a couple of years now, of tips. They're going to talk about common mistakes, and just really help set you up for success no matter where you're at in your journey, whether you are in the middle of it now or you are just now considering Pretty Focused and you're learning about us. Kind of get insight into our process here. But one thing that is really valuable about our coaches, and I love this so much, is that they are still working in the industry. So they are still actively working with clients. They're going to talk about some of the projects that they are working on this year, which is really exciting. So they have a real world experience. They're still very much connected with what clients need. And so they bring that into the coaching. So you know that you are truly being set up for success in this industry. So Lindsay, before we kind of dive into all of our tips, why don't you go first and tell us a little bit about yourself, why you joined Pretty Focused and what, like where you were and where you are now.
Okay. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. Because, if you've ever seen my interview, like I can get a little long-winded when it comes to telling my story, but I was working multiple jobs before I started Pretty Focused. I had, it was just one of those situations where I was just trying to help make ends meet. And I was doing a little bit of retail, a little bit of product photography, a little bit of real estate photography, just all the things, right? Just trying to help support the money that my husband was bringing in. And I was beyond stressed out, And then I thought, okay, I'm good at cooking and I'm good at taking pictures. So maybe I'll start a recipe blog. And I hated it. Not even gonna lie. I absolutely hated it. I didn't realize how techie it would be. And I'm like thinking to myself, how do I become the person that just makes the food and takes the pictures? And then it was like Facebook heard me thinking this and started feeding me ads for Pretty Focused. And I'm like, no way, there's no way. There's no way this is real. So, I watched all Melody's lives and ended up just going for it. And I did the course, and here we are. And it's just been absolutely life-changing to go from just feeling like how are we going to put food on the table? How are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to get through and just make those ends meet to now we're comfortable. I feel secure. I'm able to help others for the first time in a long time. And
Wow.
it's been, I can't even explain how life-changing it's been for my family.
I think that's great because I think, a lot of the students in our community see you now. They see the Lindsay that has this beautiful talent. I mean, your work is stunning, and they see you now, and they might not always realize that, before you joined, your story was very much theirs, where you were like, how are we going to put food on the table? Like, how are we going to make this happen? And so I think it's really important for our students to know that you have been there. And so all of the feedback that you give them is actually from that frame of mind of you've been there, and you want to help them get to where you are now, right? You're just kind of reaching back, grabbing their hand and pulling them on. And so I love that. And that's what I love about all of our coaches. They've gone through Pretty Focused too, is that they're not just working with clients, but to be a coach, you have to have gone through Pretty Focused. And so you know that, their story, and you like frame your feedback knowing that, because you want to help them be as successful as possible. And so I love that.
Yeah. I'm a homeschool mom too, like I'm just a mom. And I think my wish for every student that goes through the course is to understand where my heart is when I'm giving feedback. It's always to push you just a little bit, push the needle forward and get you to the point where you are confident and capable and ready to serve clients. And I want you to feel that relief that I felt when I graduated and sold my portfolio. I want everybody to be able to experience that. And
same day. I mean, 45
that's why I'm
minutes.
honest.
Yes, that's right. That's right. 45 minutes you sold your portfolio.
Yeah.
When you graduated. I remember your story so vividly of selling your portfolio, and like what an absolute relief that was. Yeah.
I had to make money immediately. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I'm like, I'm going to make a portfolio that I can sell because I need to. So I did.
Yeah. So. And so anyway, so Amber, why don't you tell us your story, where you were, where you are now, and what you love about coaching portfolio?
Well, I was kind of in the same situation. My husband's a hard worker, but he retired from the fire department to be home with us, closer to us. We live in a rural setting, and so he was driving really far. And when he left that job, we were just searching, like there's got to be something that fits us better. And of course, I was a homeschooling mom too, and also a photographer. It was just a hobby, And I'll never forget, we went on vacation just to really clear our minds, get away from it all. It may have been a little silly to leave and go on vacation when you're trying to figure things out, but it was mind clearing for us. And I'll never forget, just trying to put all the pieces together, like, oh, I've got this camera and I can use it for like beach sessions or whatever. We can move to the beach, totally not going to work for us, but just trying, to find something, trying, like grasping, like reaching and really trying to find something that would work for our family. And of course, the Facebook ads hit me and found Pretty Focused and was just really in prayer about it. And I mean, I've told you the story before. I think I was in the roadmap for like 24, maybe 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, sold. Yep, this is it. This is and so, that was one thing. I was a photographer already, knew my camera, and I felt like coming in, I was gonna just breezed through this course and I knew it all, but I had a lot to learn.
Mm.
And Lindsay was absolutely like, she gave me tough love, but it nudged me, every session that I went through in portfolio made me stronger. Every single session. And I just remember the one session in portfolio, I had to keep redoing it. And it was okay. It was totally fine. But I just remember taking a step back and looking at the first session versus the third session. And I was like, wow, what growth. It was just totally life-changing for me.
Creamy chicken soup.
Yep, that's the one.
I love it.
But I mean, even since then, I tell our students all the time, if you're not learning, then you're not growing. And so even to this day, I still feel like I'm learning. I learn from Lindsay all the time, from all the other coaches all the time. I learn from our students all the time. I feel like this is one career that you can keep going and keep growing and keep learning and keep perfecting. And I love it. I mean, it's a hobby, but it's also putting food on the table. It's also buying our children clothing. And I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is life-changing. So, that's my story.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much, you guys, your stories, and Amber, for you to come full circle. And now you are a portfolio coach, to go from student to coach and
to work alongside Lindsay.
Yeah.
When I had to redo so many recipes. I'm honored. I really am. I'm honored.
Yeah. It's so awesome. I love it. So your portfolio is like the final piece of the puzzle where you're putting everything together, and you have such an opportunity here to show your best work. Like, this is intended for your best work. And so let's kind of get into some of these tips that you have for us, ladies. What is the very first thing that you would tell somebody who is working on their portfolio?
To put quality first. It's got to be quality over quantity. We need to put our best foot forward. Because if you're not doing that, you're leaving money on the table. And this goes along with not rushing through, which I know Amber probably has a lot of really great things to say about that, but you can't deliver the quality if you're rushing. So maybe this is 2 tips in one. But that quality has got to be there. You just need to just take your time, really put yourself in the process, and just soak in everything you can and get the quality.
Yeah.
Well,
and the reason why, even the repetition. So even if you need to do something again. So James Clear in Atomic Habits says, people ask, how long is it going to take? And the question isn't how long, it's really how many reps, because it is over time that you're able to build the muscle. And I think over time is sometimes where quality can come into play. And so we want to rush through because we just want to be done. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I tell our students all the time that this is a masterpiece. It's like, it's kind of like a painting, the end is supposed to be just something that you really are proud of and you really want to display. If you're rushing through, and I Lindsay and I both understand. My portfolio was 7 out of 8 recipes were exclusives. I needed, it wasn't just a want, it was a need. I needed to sell. And if I had, just given halfway and not had Lindsay push me like she did, I probably wouldn't have sold as many as I did. So it is about building that final masterpiece, the masterpiece that you want to display. I tell our students all the time, we're building you up so that when you enter the buyers club, you're making a huge, like a peacock, like you are really showing off.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, and
Yeah.
you can't get that if you're rushing.
Yeah. And so those of you who might be like, what, they're selling their portfolio? I've never heard of somebody sell their portfolio before. Like, what is that? Well, the way our industry and our community works is really like nothing else. And so our grads will sometimes develop new recipes for their portfolio. And once they get into our buyers club, they will sell them. They'll sell those recipes. Now they're exclusively developed, they're new recipes. They're not, copied from anywhere else. They are exclusive. And so, but they're able to do that. And that's how they're able to, a lot of them make money from day one is by selling their portfolio, which is kind of incredible. I mean, Lindsay, I think you were maybe one of the first people to do that.
I think so. Yeah.
It was like genius.
So this brings me to one of my other tips is the recipe development training. I think what I've noticed a trend right now is that the grads who are developing recipes to sell in their portfolio, they're putting these recipes up for sale when they graduate, and then clients are reaching out to them to do exclusive work too. So, or to do a recreation work, where you reshoot, that's where you reshoot somebody's recipe that maybe needs to be updated. So I think that's helping, developing those recipes is helping to connect our photographers with clients faster. And it just helps you become a better overall cook and really get a good understanding of what it feels like to be a reader, in the blog, because you've got this really deep dive into how the recipe creation process works, and you're able to understand your client better and what she goes through and her needs. And so I think the recipe development training is super important. And I wish everybody would just consider, you don't have to do it if you're not comfortable, but just consider just trying it. Just
Push
give it
yourself.
a try. But I would encourage everybody to go through the development training, whether you plan on doing exclusives or not, because it helps you understand the industry on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we actually have another podcast episode with Aaron Gearhart from State of Dinner where we talk about how to format recipes and what bloggers are really looking for. So I would definitely make sure that you watch that episode. But let's go on. So that's step 2. So number 1 was quality over quantity. And so we say like 7 to 8 recipes need to be in your portfolio.
8 to 10.
8. Okay. Just kidding. We say 8 to 10 recipes need to be in your portfolio.
Yes.
So even you have people plan to do more than that, right? Just again, because it's the repetition over time that is what will really build really good habits and really build quality. So don't get frustrated. I'm just like, don't get frustrated if you're like, I had to do a few more. Don't get frustrated. Like that's like, I think a part of the learning process too, is like, this is it, you guys, this is going to set you apart.
Yeah. Those little drops of knowledge, every time you pick up that camera, you're learning something new, even if it's just the tiniest bit, because this is an art practice. So when you're creating that muscle memory, you're putting these little drops of knowledge in your bucket, and that's going to fill it up. So it's okay to repeat things. And I encourage people to plan more than, 8 to 10 recipes, like plan 12 to 15.
Mhm.
And then let's cherry pick the absolute best and showcase that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Tip number 2 was about recipe development training,
mhm.
and making sure you're solid with your development. And so what's number 3? Tip number 3.
So I had this thought about playing to your strengths and how to pick what you're going to put in your portfolio. And the phrase, I'm sure everybody's heard it, this came to my mind. You are supposed to dress for the job you want and not the one that you have, right?
Ooh.
So that I always have told my husband that. I'm like, let's put on the fancy sweater because we want you to be a president. So I want you to, look like Mr. Rogers, dress like the president does. So, when so you dress for the job you want. So it's the same thing with your portfolio. You're going to present recipes that reflect the type of work that you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's not, you want to play to your strengths, but you still want to show that versatility and what types of recipes that you would like to be hired for. So if you're not interested in doing complex layer cakes, don't put one in your portfolio because somebody's going to ask you to do one.
Yeah. And if you hate casseroles, don't do that, because if you're doing work that you hate, you're not going to be good at it. I'm sorry. Like, it's a proven fact. If you do work that you hate, you're not good at it. You won't be, it'll come across in your work, and it only hurts, it hurts you and your clients.
Right.
Like,
you don't have that passion driving you, and fueling you. And so play to your strengths and sort of stay in your wheelhouse and do the things that you hope to do, but don't close yourself off to things that you're also good at, because you want to show some versatility.
Yeah,
and
sure.
that you can do a casserole and you can do cookies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know we actually have a grad right now who's like, she's going through right now and challenging herself, where once a month she's going through and making recipes that are a challenge for her. And she's like, I just want to push myself. I want to challenge. And so she's going through and making recipes that she finds challenging, and she's really pushing herself, kind of pushing those limits. And so I'm just so proud of her for that, of just like on her own, this is what I want to do because I want to get better and I want to grow. So I think that's great. Okay. I think we're on tip number 4. What do we got?
Well, don't rush was supposed to be our number 4, I think.
Oh,
right?
yeah. But we kind of tied that into number 1, right?
I totally skipped ahead on that one. I just kind of tied that into our quality. So I wanted to touch briefly on lighting. So a lot of, and this is kind of a sensitive subject to breach because it involves money. A lot of students will switch lighting during portfolio. So they'll start with natural light and then decide to upgrade. So then you have these 2 different types of lighting in your portfolio, but they don't plan on offering natural light to a client. So, maybe you can nail it and it's absolutely perfect and you can't tell the difference, but I can usually. I can usually tell. So, my suggestion, even though I know it can be difficult for some people, is if you plan on doing artificial light, I would practice with that before starting your portfolio, just so you're accurately representing what your photos are going to look like and what you're going to be serving to your clients.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because that's honestly like some feedback that we've gotten from bloggers in the past is that, they hired somebody, and based off of the work in their portfolio, they got work delivered, and it was like, this does not match what's in their portfolio. And that's always like, oh,
Yeah.
Please avoid that. Like
Yeah.
that's one to like make note of, like whether it's lighting or recipe execution or whatever, the last thing you want is a client to be like, that is not what I was signing up for. Cause
Yeah.
that's like the fastest way to
Yeah.
not get
Just
more clients.
represent yourself and your work accurately of what, what a client can expect, and make sure that what you deliver to your client is better than what's in your portfolio. So
that's right. Every photo should be better than the last.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That goes along with the always growing, always learning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So my next tip is, after graduation, keep your portfolio updated. Keep updating it every couple months or sooner. I mean, because, when you first hit the ground running, you're going to learn so much. Like I said, every little session, those are little drops in the bucket that are going to fill it up. And once you are off and running after graduation, you're going to be moving at an even faster rate with your photography and your growth. And you've got to keep that updated.
Yeah.
So just keep checking in. And if you do a session, you're like, this is the best one I've ever shot, put it in your portfolio right then and there. Take 2 seconds and,
It's true. It's true. And especially because on our grad directory, that's where everybody can view portfolios, and bloggers do go view those. So, and then also you can use them to advertise work. It's not just what goes in your portfolio. You can use those to advertise for more work too. So let me ask you both, when was the last time you updated your portfolio?
I did not that long ago. I have been a little extra busy here lately.
You have been a little busy, haven't you?
Just a little bit, yeah. But I did cycle some sessions through, some older sessions, and put up, because I know you two know, but since graduation, I have really found a passion for craft photography. So that's been like my big thing. Homeschooling mom, we're always doing crafts anyways. And so the last year, it was like just craft after craft after craft. And they became my favorite. And so recently I was like, I don't know if I have any crafts in my portfolio. And I did, but it felt good. It was like spring cleaning to go in there and like update with, because you're always learning, always growing.
That's right.
And so it was really good. It was like rejuvenating to go in there and replenish and refresh and give like the most recent, the best of the best that I've done. So, again, with that peacock, like showing off.
Yep, that's right. And I love, I'll take it one step further beyond that, but I'm big, and I love seeing more students doing this, of printing your work and putting it on display in your office, because it just that constant reminder of the things that you've created and seeing it in print form, I feel like just kind of solidifies it. So be proud of your work, be so proud of your work, because you've accomplished so much. It's big. It's a big deal. And it's good to just,
I recently did that, because as I mentioned, lots of crafts, and my kids are always helping me, and seeing their little hands in all the pictures. I just got some like refrigerator magnets. And I mean, even though they're like, what, 3.5 by 5 or something, having those little memories of all the things that we've done from the past year, seeing their little hands in there and remembering how they might have spilled glitter everywhere or whatever, that was so uplifting. And I'm not joking. I literally just got those in the mail yesterday.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So yeah, printing, and seeing the growth, even looking back. I know Lindsay did this with a student recently. She was having a tough time, like, just, why do I always have to reshoot, and I feel like I could like give her a hug too. But Lindsay said, I want you to go and look back at your very first session that you submitted and look at where you are now. You have grown tremendously. Like, don't be burdened that you have to do this. We're always doing that nudging because we want you to showcase your best. And so looking back and seeing where you started and where you are now is huge.
Yeah.
Goes along with updating your portfolio as well. But yeah, printing is a big one too.
I think it's so good. Always go back. Always go back and look at your before and your afters. All right. What's the next tip you ladies have for us?
That was like an excellent segue into remembering your why. That was perfect, because I do really like to do that, especially if somebody is struggling or if they have just made the craziest leap in their growth. I like to give them a link to their first session and just be like, look what you did. You know, it's mind-blowing, and I never get sick of looking at somebody's growth. So, you know, that can be a good motivator that I can give on my part, but what you have to do on your end is remember your why. And when you're in the course, you'll watch a video and have to listen to my Midwestern voice for a half an hour talking about portfolio. But in there, I tell you to write down your why. You know, print it out, put it on your fridge, put it in your studio, wherever you're shooting. Remember why you're doing this. It could be something very simple, like you're doing this for money, or, you know, for fun, whatever it is. If it's for your children, if it's for vacations, if it's for personal growth, whatever your reason for doing this is, use that to keep yourself motivated and pushing forward. Don't stall out. You know?
Yes. Yes. And fight for it, you know, because the thing is, like,
fight for yourself.
Yeah. The thing is, portfolio, I mean, okay, Amber, you felt some frustrations with, you know, or like you had to reshoot some stuff. So you know. So looking back in the grand scheme of things, was it worth it? And look how much, like, do you feel like it set you up for success? And it's just a small amount of time compared to
I mean,
the life you're living now.
I will say, my husband was like, you know, it's a good thing that this creamy chicken noodle soup is really good. But I mean, when you have to reshoot, it's like we touched on earlier. I mean, you're only not even reshoot. Maybe you just do a recipe and it's like, it just doesn't turn out the way you want, you know. Remembering why you're doing what you're doing, and then knowing that, like we touched on earlier, you are, if you're doing exclusives, you're building a portfolio that you can sell. So any amount of time that you do behind the scenes to build up, you know, your best work and to show off in the end, to really showcase that masterpiece, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. It makes it, when you, and I know I've heard Lindsay's story, when you see that first sale come through, or the second, or the third, or the 45th, whatever, you know, it's like, it's so exciting, and it makes you proud, and it iterates your why.
And then all, like, the other stuff doesn't matter anymore.
No, all those times you had to set your studio back up, or you had to go to the store to get another ingredient. No, it's like, okay, it was worth it. You know, it was totally worth it. I remember telling my husband, and I know, Lindsay, you were taking screenshots and sending them to your husband, but I remember telling him, I was like, I seriously just sold my first recipe. Like, that is the coolest thing ever. And, you know, it's a great feeling. So you know, some days may be burdensome because you're like, I have to shoot this creamy chicken noodle soup again. But it's worth it. Yeah. Totally.
Honestly, I'll be like totally real and honest with you here. I still, it sets you up for the real world, because when you're working, that doesn't mean you don't have to reshoot things. I've never been asked by a client to reshoot things, because I hold myself to an insanely high standard with my work. And when I mess up, I take it upon myself to redo it if it's not what she wants. I think it's probably just luck, honestly, that I haven't been asked to reshoot, because it seems, it happens.
Yeah.
Like, it happens. But you're not a machine, and you're going to mess up. It's just inevitable when you're doing this in the kitchen, and you're going to have to reshoot things. Maybe it's your client asking you, maybe it's yourself, or the recipe didn't work out. It's going to happen. And this kind of, going through portfolio, I'm your client, and we're having like a real world mock up here. This is
treat Lindsay like she's a blogger, because she certainly is looking at your work the way a food blogger would. And Amber too, they're looking through that lens of how would a food blogger perceive this. People might hear like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reshoot. Like, Lindsay, you talked about like reality of like, sometimes when you're working with clients, you have to reshoot because you want to put your best foot forward. But honestly, I'm kind of glad that you have the ability to do that.
Yes.
Because if you think about like wedding and portraits, not an option.
You only get one shot.
Yeah.
You only get one shot. So if you think about it, it's kind of cool. Like it's all almost like a little bit of a relief that you can reshoot something and have a second chance at it, because you don't get that in other niches of photography.
Yeah. And you get to eat it again too.
Yeah, it's true. Nice. You just keep eating like the soup. Your husband's like, good thing I love this soup.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing. And and like we've said, it just pushes you to grow. Every time you're behind that camera, it's another opportunity. And so you asked me, and it is worth it. It is worth it to, reshoot and have to do it again, because that you're becoming stronger, but you also know that you're adding value.
Yeah. It's so true. So true.
Yep. In portfolio, we get that out of the way, while we're in the group. Just make those little mistakes or speed bumps, get that out of the way in portfolio, and then move on to work with your clients, and you're just that much more prepared. So,
and I mean, people say they would rather, like graduates, I hear them say, like, I would so much rather hear that from a coach than from a client. Like, I don't want to scare people being like, you're going to have to redo everything, because it it just makes it sound like we just have such a ridiculously high standard. But and that's not the case. It's that we know what clients are wanting. And I know that can be so hard for people doing portfolio. Like, they haven't seen the buyer's club, like they're just new to the industry. And so they don't quite see it yet. But one thing that we always hear from grads is that as soon as they graduate and start working with clients, they say, I get it. And you guys too. Like, you're like,
we've been through it.
I get it. I get why the feedback. I get why there is feedback. And let me tell you, whenever you're also out in the real world and you're not getting feedback, that is hard.
It happens. I'm in the same boat with Lindsay. I'll finish a session, and I'm human too. I'm not perfect by any means. And I'll sit down in Lightroom and I'll look through, and I'm like, I know I can do better. I know I can push. I put my Lindsay in my ears. I need more variety. And I know this goes along with one of your tips, Lindsay, is variety is important, super important. But I'm totally known to nudge myself to get back over there and add some more shots, you know, for variety, because I know what my clients expect. It's not unheard of. Do I have to do that every time? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I have done that before, just
Mhm.
because you want to give your clients the best.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
paying top dollar, you know, for recipes and crafts, and you want to deliver your best.
Yep.
So it doesn't stop at portfolio. It keeps going, you know,
Yep.
it keeps going. And it's
You
important
don't want to
that
break
you
that
have that
cycle of trust, right, with your client.
Mhm.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, Lindsay, as I was going through portfolio, and I hope that all of our students have this mindset, don't just submit, you know, for the feedback. Submit like you're delivering this to a paying customer, to a paying client, because ultimately that's what your portfolio is going to be. It
Yeah.
just is.
Well, I think one of my pet peeves is, and I think we all have the same one, is I'm going to be real, because this is what this is for, is whenever people are like, oh, I had a few minutes on my lunch hour, so I just am photographing and like just throwing it up there. Like, give me feedback. I just rushed through this as fast as I possibly could. And
We can
so
tell. We know.
yeah, we can tell. And so, you know, do your best work, right?
Mhm.
You know, our coaches are their time, like, make sure that the feedback is worth their time, you know,
Yeah.
like make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, whether you are like in the course or portfolio, but don't just like, I just had a few minutes. And so,
Yeah.
because you would never do that for a client.
No.
We form really personal relationships with every student, because when you go through portfolio, you'll work with just Amber and myself. That's it.
Yeah.
So we have a really good gauge of what your best is as an individual. So we can tell if you need to be pushed a little bit farther, or if that's your best work, you know, because we get to know them so personally, and their style, and what they're capable of. And, you know, it's my job just to push you just a little bit, just turn that dial a little bit, and just pull out those fine
Yeah.
details, and help you kind of develop your personal style and your quality.
And now don't get me wrong. If you only have 20 minutes on your lunch break to take photos, you take photos. You still practice. You still do
Yes.
it. Not everything that you photograph needs to be submitted for feedback. You know, you can do that session for yourself, but whenever you are presenting something to a coach, like, make sure like it's your best.
Yep.
Make sure it's your best. So, and we encourage you, like, to even beyond what you're posting in there, to continue to practice and stuff, because sometimes you just gotta do. You just gotta.
It's only going to make your next session
Yeah.
that much better. Like I said, it
Yep.
adds up. It
Yep.
adds up.
Yeah. So Lindsay, let's talk about variety. What do you mean by variety? I heard, you know, Amber, you talked about that. So this is our next tip, is variety. How do you add variety? What do you mean? The different types of recipes, the different types of photos, backdrops, what?
This is a huge part of portfolio and client work. So you will hear me repeatedly, and Amber, talking about the importance of variety. Just this month, I had a client. She gives me just a really simple Google Doc with my assignments for the month. And one of the recipes she wants me to reshoot for her, the only note she put on there is the photos are just too similar. So whoever originally shot it, they didn't give her any variety. So they need these different photos for their blog, but not just that. They need them for social media, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all the things, Pinterest, right? So for photos to have variety, you have to be able to compare them side by side, and they can hold their own as individual images. So they're showing the hero, which is your food that you're photographing, in a completely different and interesting new way for it to be variety. Or you can do variation, which is you just make a tiny little tweak here and there because you think your client might like maybe this angle a little bit better, or maybe with the spoon in, the spoon out. That would be variation. But they really need that variety. So we're going to do like a macro shot, and then we're going to pull back and we're going to set the table, with 3 different bowls. And then we're going to change the angle and get a straight on shot. So that's variety, and it is so important. They need it and they crave it. So we have to deliver it.
They can't just have all overhead photos, of like the bowl. I remember one time somebody emailed me and they were like, I'm experienced. I've been working with food bloggers. Can I just buy my way into the buyers club? Here's my photos. And it was pretty much the same photo. I think the garnish on the soup was a little bit different. Maybe the placement of the spoon was different, but they were basically cropped at different angles and sizes. And you can't just, I don't think, and in what we do, you just crop a photo and it makes it different. And so every photo is the exact same. And I explained to him, like, actually, the bloggers in our community, they need variety. And so these are things that just because you have a camera in your hand and just because you've taken photos of food doesn't mean you know what the clients that you're trying to serve is. And that's what Pretty Focus does, is it trains you and sets you up for success in this industry. Working for food bloggers. So it is different than portraits. It is different than, editorial photography too, because editorial photography is you're setting up for one shot, right? This, you have to have a variety. And so making sure you have different angles, but then, you kind of take that, the transition from oven to served. So it's an overhead of the soup in the cast iron pan, right? And then or cast iron Dutch oven. And then what do? You ladle the soup out. So then you're taking a photo of the soup ladled, right? And you want to make sure that you can see all the textures in the soup, like all the different types of vegetables in the soup. You can see some of the steam, make it look yummy. And then you put it in the bowl. Right. And then you will put it in the bowl and then you'll add a garnish to it. And so literally every single step, just follow the way that you serve it for your family. You don't just put a bowl of soup in front of your family. You actually do something first. And so photographing that all along the way is a way to make sure that you are adding variety.
Right.
Efficiently too. I call that my oven to table workflow. And I help all the portfolio students develop that skill because it gets you through your heroes quick. You're going oven to table. I interrupted you, Amber. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say storytelling. It's for portrait, you're following your kids around, you're taking pictures of your kids, you're telling the story of your daily life. Well, that's what we do with food and crafts. We tell the story. And so leaving out, a little part just doesn't make sense. You want to photograph and there, you can get carried away and photograph too much, but you want to tell the story of the recipe for sure. Yeah.
Including the textures, the steam, the temperature of the food, right? You can do that by having the steam in the photos. And that's why macro lenses are so important. And then if you don't have one, I always say you guys can start with macro filters because it's a cost efficient way to get started with those types of shots now until you can afford a macro lens. And so like those are really, really important. So there's so many different ways you can add variety, but wide angles, macros, overhead angles, even how you're adjusting the styling on the board can make a difference too. But
I always tell our students if they're lacking, if they're struggling with inspiration for capturing variety, think of action. What are you doing? What can you do? Because there are some recipes that are they're just more challenging, you know.
Mhm.
Melody, you mentioned soup, and that's one that always seems to stand out in my mind as our students do. I mean, it's like it's a bowl, you know, a
It's a
bowl of
bowl
soup.
of soup. What else can you do, right?
Yeah, so I always encourage the action. That's where you're going to find those different, you know, variety shots, the ladling, the scooping, the textures, you know, and then of course serving it, you know, one versus, you know, like a more setup, you know.
Mhm.
I learned a lot during my soup session in portfolio, but I've learned since then too. And
Mhm.
you know, like I said, I learn from our students all the time. I love seeing their work and seeing their creativity. But yeah, and then another tip too, not only action, but then looking through taking a deep dive when you're hero hacking and really looking at the blog posts, seeing what other kinds of shots, not just the one that's the peacock, but also the one that they use in their posts too, or
Mhm.
the others that they use in their posts.
Yeah.
That's where you can kind of glean from and learn from and see what shots they're actually using.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, becoming familiar with your clients and how, you know, they like to, how they're displaying the photos, I think is really important to make sure that you're continuing to give them what they need. I think soups and variety and textures, I'll give a tip. You guys give another tip. We'll give bonus tips here. My number one tip for soups is shooting backlit. And I
Yeah.
think that's another, it's a way to add variety that we often forget about is by just rotating your table or move. I know if you're artificial light, it might be easier said than done, but honestly, adding in backlight is a way to make those textures pop. And it's another way to add variety to your images. And it's
Yep.
just simply by changing the light.
I shoot 100% of my sessions backlit, and people always say that my food looks sparkly. That's why.
That's why.
Because
Yeah.
it's backlit.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep. It makes a difference. Yep. Now, in something like crafts, do you ever shoot backlit or do you do from the side? I think crafts are more side.
Yeah, crafts are more side. Plus, you get a lot of like more lifestyle pictures too. Not all of them lend themselves to that, but I have taken a lot of just lifestyle, like of the kids actually doing the craft, whatever it is.
Right, which is a great tip for variety for crafts. If you're adding those to your portfolio, is you have to include a lifestyle element. Like if you are making a candle, it can't just be sitting on a styling board. If it is, you need to create like a bathroom scene, right? You need to show that craft being used in like real time or real life. So that's another
setting.
Another setting. Yeah. So what other tip do you guys have for variety? Like we talked about soups. Were we talking about soups? Is that what I was? Was that what? Okay. I was like 3 bonus tips on soup. I can't remember what I said. It's all.
We do so many soups though.
So many soups. Yeah.
I can't count how many soups I do in a month. It's I'm probably doing like 6 to 10 soups a month. I'm not even joking. I do a lot of soup.
Giving feedback on or photographing yourself?
Shooting soup.
Yeah,
so you need to be good at shooting soup. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're big, especially we're big soup eaters. So I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. And so any other tips? So you shooting backlit and then making sure you're showing like the movement is important too. That's important for it. Like any action that you can take is
well. And another thing that Lindsay, pointed out that I hadn't really given much thought in my portfolio. I did a hot chocolate that it was an exclusive recipe. And one of them in clients, I have found personally, clients, especially with all the AI going around, they like the option of real hands versus, the AI hands. So So I always give that
The ones
option
with 10
of
fingers.
hand versus no hands. So that way, I mean,
Yeah.
that gives them variety. You know, it gives
Yeah.
what we call the human touch.
Yeah. A real human touch.
A real human touch. Yeah. Not, you know, weird fingers
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's another way to get variety, and offering the hands in and the hands out is crucial, because it may be a blogger who doesn't like that. You know, they may not want hands in. So yeah.
That's true. Yep. That's good. That's good. All righty. So let's move on to the next tip.
Okay.
What you got for us?
I want to talk really briefly about bravery. Because this is a common theme that I see, especially when you're just starting, when you're trying to just rip the Band-Aid off and show us that first session. I want you to remember that fear is the first step towards bravery. So you cannot be brave if you're not scared. So it's okay to be scared. You have to get through that and rip the Band-Aid off to be able to get to that bravery, and just go for it. It's okay to be scared. Do this scared. Just jump in and just do it. You know, don't feel. Watch our podcast about imposter syndrome. What you're going to learn is that every single one of us still feels it. So we understand that feeling of imposter syndrome, but you're right where you're supposed to be. You wouldn't be in the portfolio group if you weren't meant to be there. So have confidence, look back at your growth, remember why you're doing this, and just push through that fear so you can be brave, and we can move you forward and get you graduated and make that cash.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think too, everybody too, because you always look around and see everybody else. Everybody's doing the best that they can. And you know, this got me over my fear of the gym. Okay. Because I would go to the gym and I would be like, everybody's looking at me.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at me. I can't do this. I'm going to look like an idiot on these machines. And I'm just going to make a fool out of myself. And I was talking to my friend who is, she's a personal trainer. She and her husband are in the gym all the time. And she's like fit, right? And I'm like talking to her and I'm like, I just feel so insecure. I just feel so nervous. And she was like, honey, we're all out here doing the very best that we can.
Yeah.
And that made me feel so much better. So now whenever I go to the gym and I'm like step onto the floor, like get off the treadmill and actually go onto the floor where all the weights are, you know what I mean? Like get off the treadmill and go work out, Melody. I just realized, okay, everybody here probably has a little bit of insecurity about being here. Everybody here is just doing the very best that they can. And so you kind of have to put the side blinders on and say, everybody here, they're doing their own thing. They're doing the best that they can. I'm going to do the best that I can. And know that people are looking at me thinking the same thing. Look at her. Look at her. She's out there.
Yep. She's doing it. And everybody in that group is cheering you on. There is not one person in there that is thinking anything negative about you or your work. All we're doing is cheering you on and trying to get you moving forward and, you know, doing your best. And so it's that support. I don't know. You can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
Other than Pretty Focused, you know?
No, you can't.
So
I felt that as a student. I remember very specifically, it was Amy and Redonda, and they were like fighting for me, trying to help me figure out something that I was going through with my lighting. And it made me feel so loved and so special. And Pretty Focused is a seriously awesome community. I love it from day one. I felt like I was at home. I felt like y'all are my people. And we've certainly, certainly just had so much encouragement through the community.
Yeah.
So yeah, nobody, you know, you can certainly go through the imposter syndrome. I think that's the deal with all photography. You're putting your work out there, you're trying to show off. That's just what photography is. And you can feel defeated by others around you who you're like, oh, she's got better pinch bowls than me, or whatever.
Right.
It is real, but you have to just remember that every time you pick up your camera, you're learning. It's an opportunity for growth. And we're all in that same boat, all of us together. Yeah. So it doesn't matter where students amaze me. I tell our students this all the time too. I am blown away when I know that you have come into this course not knowing anything about a camera. Like, barely even know how to turn the thing on, like that's amazing. That's amazing. And then to see that you graduate and you have the portfolio that you have, I'm like, I think she's better than me. She's giving me imposter syndrome.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing too, is like a lot of people don't realize most of our grads do not have experience.
Yeah. Lindsay and I came in and we had experience. And, sometimes that can hurt you because you're like, I know what I'm doing, but you don't, and everybody at some point in their journey has needed encouragement, has needed a kick in the rear, a nudge, or whatever. We've all been there. So there's no point in being nervous or scared. I mean, it's going to happen. It just is what it is. But knowing that every single one of us has been there helps. Makes it relatable for sure.
Yep. I know that quote, like, oh, but what if I fail? And it's like, oh, but darling, what if you fly? And it's great. It's a great quote. I think maybe I brought this up in the other podcast episode we did, but it was like, the reality is that you will have mess ups, right? You're going to make mistakes. Like that's just a part of life. And, I think you will fly, but there's probably going to be some bumps along the way, and that's normal. Don't give up. Just keep doing it. Yeah. Just keep doing it.
It's like the scientific method, it's you find out what doesn't work so you can find out what does work.
Right. That's right. Sometimes
homeschool mom.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And so it's all just like reframing those mistakes of like reframing the mistakes into like, this isn't a mistake. This is a lesson that I have learned, So, okay, let's move on. We're almost done with our tips.
All right. So the next thing I want to talk really briefly about is just choosing foods that look good for your portfolio. Choose things that you're comfortable photographing. So something like the color orange, that is everybody's nemesis. Okay. Orange is so difficult to photograph because if it's overexposed, it takes on this peachy glow and it looks radioactive. It is difficult. Okay. It is not beginner friendly. So consider that. If you can't make it look on camera like you can, like when you look at it with your eyes, if you can't match those two up, it might not be time to do orange yet. Let's get a couple sessions under your belt first, fine tune your editing skills, and then we'll try orange, maybe like session 3 or 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Pick foods that look good. Some things that I think of when I think of food that looks good for portfolio, chocolate, obviously. Honey is my favorite thing in the world to play with. Honey looks amazing. Honey and syrups. And then anything that you make in a pan that has a pan sauce that's thickened slightly. So think like chicken piccata, smothered pork chops, things like that stay looking good for a very long time. So
Okay.
it helps you take your time with the heroes so you can do something beautiful and maybe a little more complex, but it's going to buy you some time because that cornstarch or flour stabilized sauce is going to look beautiful and shiny for a really long time. Things like cupcakes and cookies, the same thing. It's got that longevity under your light. Something like ice cream, that you're going to have a workflow. You need to have a shot list, and you're just going to have to be able to just fly through it. Mac and cheese, if you do something like that, you need to make extra sauce so you can refresh and keep it looking moist.
Yeah.
Because when you're first starting your portfolio, it's going to take you a little bit longer to shoot than me. It might take you an hour or two. I'll get through it in 20 minutes. You're not going to get through it in 20 minutes. So we need to think about that longevity too. Is it going to look good for a while? And then colorful veggies, always a good choice, like salads, a strawberry poppy seed salad or something like that. Something that we call a Michigan cherry salad here. I don't know if you guys have those there, but salads that have like dried cherries and cranberries and the
color we have that all the time.
Now walnuts and those different textures and colors will look beautiful, and they'll look beautiful for a long time. So you can take your time with it and not feel rushed through your session.
Yeah.
So pick
now,
things
I will say,
that look good.
Yes. And mac and cheese is more challenging. Everybody needs to be able to photograph mac and cheese because you will probably have a baked mac and cheese. So you don't just like avoid it altogether, but maybe get some quick wins, right? Some good stuff. And then, you can work on the more challenging stuff too, like she said.
Yeah. And you can push those challenging things back a little bit. You don't have to do those for session one. For session one, let's see your cookies and your things that have a little more longevity. And then as you're progressing through and you're becoming more confident and you're working faster, then we can start working in some of those more difficult recipes that are going to challenge you, because like you said, you are going to be asked to shoot that. So then I can teach you tips on that mac and cheese about how we can work more efficiently in the studio for your client. And I'll teach you about keeping it saucy looking and all those little pro tips,
Those little tips. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've got one more tip left.
Okay. So this one is kind of about staying in your wheelhouse. Again, we sort of touched on this a little bit, but choose recipes that you know how to cook, that you've done before, or also that the recipes are from a reputable source. A lot of times I see students they'll find some obscure recipe from the bowels of the internet and try to make it, and it doesn't work, So like if you're going to do a recreation for your portfolio, like do Martha Stewart's recipe so it's going to work, right?
Right.
But do something that you're comfortable. You want to push yourself a little bit, but not too far to where you're getting frustrated or you're, heaven forbid, you're crying about it because it's not going well. Like you're learning enough right now. You're learning all these new skills and how to pull it all together. So take it easy on yourself and stay with things that that you can execute really, really well. So you have that quality. Rather than, because it breaks my heart when somebody struggles so badly with a recipe and they're like, oh, I've never made a cheesecake before and it fails. Well, let's not do a cheesecake. What can you do well? Can you do an apple pie really well? Like let's do an apple pie. You like cooking those, so let's try that, and there's your dessert.
And if you can do an apple pie, God bless you.
Underbake it.
You know, like, so I think that's really great, is because we are hard on ourselves, and we hold ourselves to like this really ridiculously high standard. And we think that we, should be doing cheesecakes, or it's our portfolio. It's really time to stretch myself. And it's like, no, the portfolio is really the time to show the best work, the work that you want to get hired for. And if I was sharing the grad who wants to stretch herself and, make recipes and photograph things that are harder for her, that's something that she's doing, on the side on her own time. And I absolutely think that you should be doing that. But your portfolio is showing your absolute best work, and it's okay to lean into your strengths in the recipes that you're familiar with, just like you just said, knowing that you can execute well, and because it's going to come across in your work too. And it's
you're not just showing your photography skills, you're also showing your cooking skills.
I was just gonna say that it's not just photos.
Yeah,
it's not just photos.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be an expert in our field, with not only the photography, but the cooking and the recipe execution. Yeah. Those recipes have to be executed well. So if you're not confident cooking that type of dish, you do not have to do that for portfolio. Do things that you can photograph and execute really well, and that you're confident in, because that's going to come across in your portfolio, and you'll be that much more proud of it because you enjoyed the process and it didn't make you cry.
Yes, exactly. But, I would say keep a note of the things that you love to do. I really enjoyed photographing those cookies. Like, make a list, right? Love to do, need to work on, right? And so be aware of your strengths, be aware of your weaknesses, right? And so areas that you can grow in. But it's okay to lean into your strengths. That's what having a business that you love is all about. Is you actually do things that you love, including if you just love pies, if you just love savories, if you're like, I'm casseroles all day, baby, good for you. Like, right? That's you. That's
meat
you.
And cheese.
You love the savory and the meats, and you do so well at that. And Amber, you do so well at crafts, and you love it. And so you both are really leaning into, and I think that we think we have to do it all.
Yeah.
We think we have to do it all and be good at it all. But that's not.
Well, I even last year had one of my clients was asking if I could can, and that's not, I want to learn, I'm interested in it, but that's not my expertise. I'm not there yet. And so I was very honest with her. I can't do this, but I know who can, And so I sent her on to Jen, and, Jen's another one of our coaches, for those of you who aren't students. But Jen is fabulous with what she does. I mean, beautiful work. And that is her thing. Yep. So, playing on your strengths and going with what you know and you're comfortable with is only going to make your job easier.
Yeah.
And so more enjoyable. No tears.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we don't want tears. We don't want any of that.
No.
Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. Wow. These were, we dove deep into all of these tips on, quality over quantity, really making sure you're putting your best foot forward. Dress for the job you want, not the job that you have. Don't rush the process. Be consistent with your lighting. Like, don't switch halfway through your portfolio. And keep your portfolio up to date after graduation. Stay motivated. Remember your why. Fear is your first step towards bravery. Making sure you're adding variety to your portfolio is huge. Making sure you're focusing on recipes that look good, like orange, not beginner friendly. So don't start there. Choose proven recipes that you're familiar with, that you're confident with. And then making sure that you are, if you're choosing to develop recipes, making sure that you are properly developing them, making sure you have a well-written recipe to go along with it. And to remember is that we're not just photographers too, is that we're also creating these recipes in our kitchen. And it's important to be able to make the food look good. So take your time, slow down whenever you're making food for clients, and remember that this is their bread and butter, right? They build their reputation off of recipes and the photos, and the quality photos help establish their authority with their readers. And so we have to keep that in mind whenever we are doing our work, is that it's not just our reputation, it's our client's reputation too, with their readers, right? And how they're using their photos, because the buck doesn't stop at the blogger, right? They're putting these photos now out into the world to help drive traffic to their blog. And so we have to keep always the end result in mind. And
and how frustrating is it? I know I have been frustrated with a recipe before that didn't turn out like the pictures. Yeah. So that recipe execution and knowing that the recipe that you're building, if you are building an exclusive, super important.
Yeah.
That it is, that you can repeat it, that it turns out well every time.
Yep.
Just another tip throw out there.
Yep. That's right. That is so true. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you are a part of our team, that you are coaching these ladies, because like we shared before, you've been there, right? You've been there. You know what they are working to achieve, the life of freedom, flexibility, fulfillment. And so you're helping them to get there, and you're helping them to get there faster, because the reality is, like, you can go out and you can do this, right? You can go learn food photography, and you can go take years to build up your social media following. You can take years to build up, that's the reality, right? Pretty Focused helps get you there faster.
Yep.
Whether you've picked up a camera, or not, you will learn, you will grow, and you will connect with clients because of what you will learn in Pretty Focused.
Yep.
And so everything that we do, what we teach, and how we coach helps you to be able to connect with those clients faster, to help set you up for success. Like, our end goal is your success. This is why we do what we do.
Yep. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
The coaches.
Yes.
Trust us coaches.
We've been there.
Let us guide you and get you there.
That's right.
Just trust us.
All right.
We're in the trenches.
Yes. If you guys found this episode helpful, let us know. All right. We'll talk to you later. See you in the next episode.